Hey guys and ladies, welcome to another video. Today we have a ranked, this is not a top 10. And this is one I've been contemplating for a long time. I've had this spreadsheet made up of this ranked list of honey fragrances. And honey is actually one of my favorite notes in perfumery. I would put it right behind animalics. It adds this extra dimension for me to a fragrance. And I absolutely love honeyed fragrances. I have ever since I was a kid, probably because my father's signature scent has a note of honey in it, and it is in this ranking, and I do actually still wear it even to this day. But this, first of all, this is going to be a long video. It's going to be a top 50 with a couple samples that I want to mention that have honey in it that I've either talked about on the channel briefly or I want to talk about very soon. But the whole top 50, except for one 10 ml decant, or a couple 10 ml decants, I should say, and maybe some minis, maybe some minis are full bottles. So these are fragrances I love enough to have in my collection. And this took me a long time to set up, so I hope you guys really appreciate this video. My voice is back. I feel kind of like a little bit more like myself. I've been fighting off this illness that hit the entire family. So we're on the mend now, and so now that I'm feeling better, I wanted to do a very special video for you guys. But before we get started, we have an unboxing, and I know what this is. I've got a couple more vintage fragrances coming, but this one is a special one. I've been looking for this for a while, and I decided it was time to stop screwing around and basically pull the trigger on a bottle of this. I got it for a very fair price, and I also got, I'll tell you once I show you what it is, I got its older brother, the one that came out 1 year after this, but it's still on the way. And actually both of these are officially discontinued, according to Parfum. So I would, if you're interested, I would grab a bottle now while you can. So this is a vintage bottle of Aigner No. 1 Eau de Toilette. So this is a 50 ml bottle, and it came out in 1975. Number 2 came out in 1976. They're both officially discontinued now. I did see number 2 on fragrancebuy.ca for like 20 bucks. So if you're interested in scooping up some of these discontinued fragrances, fragrancebuy.ca, they're just one that I always kind of go to. I'm not sponsored or anything like that, but they are one that I tend to use and look at all the time. And their prices, I think, are very fair. And they had Aigner No. 2 on there for like 20 bucks. So, but number 1 is basically this spicy, leathery fragrance. And I was thinking, how in the world have I... Sorry. We'll deal with you later. How in the world did I not have this in my collection? So I got a great price on this because there was a little bit taken out of the bottle, but not much. I think it was pretty much full. So there it is, number 1, Aigner No. 1, beautiful. I'm really liking this brand. They have one called Silver, which I absolutely adore. I'm a big fan of Aigner Silver. And they also have a fragrance called Explosive for women, which I absolutely love as well. And that has a little bit of a animalic note to it as well, this like animalic floral fragrance. So, but this is supposed to be a spicy, leathery fragrance with galbanum, marjoram, clary sage, sandalwood, old school sandalwood, and patchouli with a touch of iris and moss, ambergris, leather, vanilla, and tonka. So I'm excited to have it. I also got number 2. It's on the way, along with a couple other vintage fragrances, but Aigner No. 1, I'm glad to add to the collection. So, welcome to the collection, my friend. You sit amongst your brethren back there. Okay, so let's get started with Scent of the Day, as is customary for Channel Ramsey. So, Scent of the Day was an absolute banger. It was the first time I wore it this winter, this season. I think I wore it at the end of 21 or maybe early 22, but this is the first time this winter that I've actually worn it, and it is YSL's Opium Secret de Parfum, and I am so glad I have a backup bottle of this, thank God. This is a 50 ml, this is a 30 ml. thanks to Anuj, I have a 100 ml backup, and I am over the moon with this fragrance. Let me tell you, it is one of the best, I would say one of the best Oriental fragrances of all time, ever. Okay, I know that's a bold statement, but I think I can make it and say it with a straight face and mean what I'm saying, because now, if you guys aren't familiar with this, Secret de Parfum throws some people off sometimes because they think that this is like a completely different fragrance. Maybe it's even a flanker to opium. It's not. It's actually just a different concentration. So the official way that it's described is Secret de Parfum is a specific variant of perfume concentration used by YSL for opium in the mid-90s. It is akin to Eau de Parfum and was substituted by a reformulation, oh, the R word, of the formula for the Eau de Parfum. And so if you know some of the French houses from their fragrances that came out in the 80s, or were around in the 80s, I should say, excuse me, like for example, Rochas Femme. And, you know, if you know some of the Rochas fragrances, if you know Guerlain fragrances from that were around in the 80s and early 90s, sometimes you'll hear these terms like Parfum de Toilette. They don't seem like they go together. And many of the houses in the late 80s, early 90s did not have a set way of saying Eau de Parfum. So, for example, you'll notice that sometimes Dior will have written Esprit de Parfum. YSL says Secret de Parfum. You know, there's all these different ways of basically saying Eau de Parfum. Chanel even went in a different direction, and they said instead of Eau de Parfum, they used to use the term on men's fragrances Eau de Toilette Concentré, because they didn't think men wanted to wear a parfum, right? And so it's an interesting conversation, but what makes it so unique is you can very easily date these bottles. If you ever see this bottle at a good price and you love opium, it is just, it's like opium squared. I mean, it is so good. There's something so special about the way the resins just kind of blend. I mean, it's just this perfect blend. It's like this mind meld, you know, everything just kind of just meshes together. And that ambery benzoin with the myrrh. The myrrh is a big player in this, even more so. I think in the Eau de Toilette, I noticed the clove and, you know, maybe a touch of the florals a little bit more than I do here. Here, it's the myrrh, that Apopanax myrrh, like, you know, resinous, sweet myrrh feel with that vanilla and benzoin. And so give this a try if you're interested in this DNA. But man, what a pleasure it's been wearing this today. We took the little one to see Santa. Actually, Santa came to the neighborhood, and so we just kind of went out to the barn, to the get-together, and they brought reindeer and everything. It was a cool little get-together for the little ones, but that was just projecting in the cold. I swear people, you know, 50 yards away could smell me. Okay, let's get started on this countdown. So before we get started on the actual top 50, we're going to go through some 1 and 2 ml samples that I have that I want to talk about, because they do have the note of honey. And some of these I've talked about on the channel before briefly. Some of them I plan on talking about. Probably one of the ones that is most anticipated, and I will agree, it is a very good fragrance. And it's from the house of Hiram Green, and it's called Slow Dive. Now, Slow Dive is this sweet resinous, okay, fragrance that uses honey and beeswax with resins. And so it's like this somewhat floral. The tuberose may put some men off in here, but it has a beautiful dried fruit accord that mixes with the honey. So I plan on doing a early impression on this very soon. It's just a matter of time and getting to it. So Slow Dive is whenever you list off the most famous honey fragrances, many times nowadays Slow Dive makes that list, even though it just came out about 5 years ago. And then There's one that I actually did a review. There's a full, or an early impression, I should say, on the channel. It's from the House of Papillon, and this is called Tobacco Rose. And Tobacco Rose is probably one of the best natural, realistic, but still interesting rose fragrances I've ever smelled. It literally smells like the rose otto. I mean, if you get real rose otto and you're just smelling that ingredient, this is probably one of the closest fragrances I've ever come to that feeling. And there's a beautiful Bulgarian rose with May rose, and there's this French hay note that's supposed to imitate the note of tobacco, and it does a fantastic job with beeswax. So if you've never smelled Tobacco Rose, it's definitely full bottle worthy. Excuse me, I'm still getting over this cold. If I cough in your ear, I do apologize. But if you are in the market for a rose fragrance, check this one out. This is very good stuff. Go check out my review. Next on the list, we have Thierry Mugler. And hopefully there's enough juice for me to still do an early impression on this. This is the Thierry Mugler version of Angel. And I would like a full bottle of this, to be honest with you, but I want the Thierry Mugler version. I don't want the new butchered L'Oreal Mugler version of Angel. This is one of the scents that kind of changed the game. If you put, you know, markers at the most important scents of all time, you would have to put a waypoint right on Thierry Mugler's Angel. This is Olivier Cresp. Some would argue one of his best creations of all time. And it's this gourmand, this patchouli heavy gourmand with, and you wouldn't think I would like a gourmand, but I actually am a big fan of Angel. There's just, I think it's just one of the best designer fragrances ever released, and there is a big honeyed aspect to this gourmand-like quality that you're smelling here. So Thierry Mugler's Angel, hopefully a video on that coming soon as well. I'm going to take a sip of water here. I might need to grab a lozenge. I always feel like I'm doing okay, and then I start talking and my voice is like getting caught in my throat. Excuse me. Okay, next is a fragrance that I do have a review on the channel on, and it's another one that I would love a full bottle of. This is Tom Ford's Sahara Noir. Now, this guy wrote on here that this was called Golden Tears, and that was the working name that Tom Ford had for this fragrance before it was released, and that's where this juice came from. Who knows if that's true or BS or not, but I will tell you that I am a big proponent of Sahara Noir, and I think it's a shame it's discontinued, to be honest with you. The labdanum in this. This is one of the best labdanum fragrances of all time, but there's also this smoky, dry papyrus, you know. Think of the way that maybe the papyrus was used in Gucci Pour Homme 1. Just a little bit of that. A little bit of that Gucci Pour Homme 1 dry papyrus in here from 2003 that Michel Almarac made so beautifully, with a little bit of beeswax and some oud, but it's mostly about the labdanum. This is one of the best labdanum fragrances. That's why I really want a full bottle, but they are extremely hard to find. And, you know, when you do find them, most people want an arm and a leg nowadays. And then there's a fragrance, a couple fragrances coming up that I have full reviews or early impressions on the channel. One is Frederic Maule's L'Eau d'Hiver. And this was Jean-Claude Ellena's inspiration from Après Landais. Actually, I didn't even know that when someone sent me this decant. It was like, you know, there's just so much information out there. It's very hard to keep up with everything. And so when I got this, I didn't even know that this was kind of like this conceptual redesign of Après Landais by Jean-Claude Ellena. Excuse me. And so he adopted this interplay of aldehydes and almondy, this vanilla-like smelling heliotropin and orris, and presented it with a little bit of honey. and Carnation. And I really like this fragrance, actually. I don't hear many people talking about it nowadays. It's not like a beast mode performer. It's not, you know, doesn't make many top 10 lists or anything like that. But L'Eau d'Hiver, Jean-Claude Elaine has surprised me. You know, early on in my journey, I didn't think I liked his work. I thought he was too much of a minimalist, too much of a, you know, his fragrances are very airy. And if you listen to Eugene describes him very well. He'll say that it's like he's painting with watercolors. And I didn't think I liked that kind of perfumery early on. But I'm starting to realize that even though it's light and airy, there's still a lot to smell. There's still a lot to uncover. So, L'Eau d'Hiver. And then we've got Nichane Nefs. This video is going to be 18 hours at this rate. Nichane Nefs, I have, again, a review on the channel. It's this honeyed Middle Eastern saffron with this fruity fig and osmanthus that kind of gives off this leathery apricot vibe, but there's a big, you know, warm cinnamony, imagine a Middle Eastern style fragrance. There's a big Middle Eastern style facet to Nichane Nefs. Also, another one that I didn't even think about until just now, there's a Spirit of Dubai fragrance, and, excuse me, the Spirit of Dubai fragrance is called Majalis, and there's a review of that on my channel as well. And Majalis has a honey note with some Arabic coffee and beautiful fragrance. That's one of the few Spirit of Dubais I thought was full bottle worthy. But Nichane Nefs being in this Middle Eastern style reminded me of it, and that has a honey note as well. And then, speaking of kind of Middle Eastern style fragrances, there's a Louis Vuitton, and again, there's a review of this on my channel. It's called Fleur du Désert, and desert flowers, basically. And this is this oud rose. Excuse me, I'm gonna grab a lozenge so I don't keep coughing in your ear. And a sip of warm tea. It's crazy. I think my voice is back and I won't have any problems. And as soon as I start talking, bam. Okay, so Fleur du Désert is a Jacques Cavalier creation from 2022, this year actually. And I like this. It's not that I hated it. It's the it's the cost that they want, you know, the $360 for 100 ml. And while this is nice, it has that Louis Vuitton fragrances have this extra synthetic quality to them. They almost feel like the way MFK does his perfumes, and the fact that MFK really likes to push that synthetic quality right to the forefront. He doesn't hide it. You know, there's no no shame in MFK's game. And it's very similar with the way Jacques Cavalier is creating fragrances for Louis Vuitton. Lots of Arabic style, heavy, lots of ambroxan. Excuse me. Lots of ambroxan. And so this sort of style, while I don't mind it, you know, I wore this as my scent of the day. I didn't mind wearing it. I enjoyed it. I don't think I'd buy a bottle. And then there's actually a Mar Olfactif fragrance called Sagendalia. And I've talked about wanting to review some of these, or at least start talking about them. Because from what I've smelled, excuse me, from what I've smelled, this house seems to have some high quality ingredients. They don't seem to be very cheap. No one talks about them ever. They're like an unknown, you know, like they're just completely off of the matrix. But Sagendalia is one that I do want to try to talk about on the channel very soon. I want to start trying to talk about that brand. So another one is Schiaparelli's Shocking. And this is actually a newer bottle that Natalia sent to me. Thank you, Natalia. Man, I don't know if we're going to be able to make it through 50 like this. We're going to try. I am not going to back down. So Shocking is the bottle that originally inspired the Jean-Paul Gaultier's Le Male bottle. Actually, if you didn't know that, this is the bottle from 1937 that gave Jean-Paul Gaultier the idea to do the torso. And basically, this is like this animalic floral is what this is. It's this animalic honeyed floral is how I should say it. Lots of jasmine, lots of ylang-ylang, daffodils, narcissus rose with civet in the base. And this is a new bottle. So I would love to know what a vintage of this was like. The old bottles almost had like this tailor looking line that goes around it and a big S, big red S on the front. Very different from the pink modern logo. The old one almost looks blocky and, you know, Superman, almost Superman-like. So I'd love to sniff the vintage one day, but this is good. You know, I've put a dab on skin before bed, and it's not bad, even for a modern. Okay. Couple more, and then we'll try to do this top 50. Number 1 is Francesca Bianchi's The Black Knight. And this was very kindly sent to me by one of my perfume god people. Thank you very much. You know who you are. And I believe it was Nissan who sent me these. I don't think he was wanting to remain anonymous. I know some people who sent me some stuff wanted to remain anonymous, but I think he was okay with being given a shout out. But Francesca Bianchi's The Black Knight came out in 2019. It's supposed to be this leathery, spicy fragrance with, of course, that patented Francesca Bianchi orris butter, Artemisia, caraway, honey, Bulgarian rose, vetiver, patchouli, leather, oak moss. Sounds like a fragrance I'd really like. And I think the patchouli and vetiver are supposed to be kind of turned up in this one. So this will make a good early first impression. That's more than enough for me to wear it as my scent of the day and talk about it. She has a couple others that I want to do, you know, scent of the day wears and talk about. One is called The Dark Side. And The Dark Side came out in 2016. And this is honey with spices and iris, violet, sandalwood with styrax, amber, vetiver, cedarwood, frankincense, patchouli, and vanilla. Another Francesca Bianchi that I'm very interested in trying. And finally, in 2018, she put out The Lover's Tale. And this is probably the one I'm most excited about. And the reason is castoreum. It's one of my favorite notes. I love animalic notes. And honey, castoreum, labdanum, leather. Sounds right up my alley. Sounds exactly like the kind of fragrance that I like. So this is compared to Amber Kiso by Dias and Durga. I've never smelled a Dias and Durga, by the way. But I hear good things. I hear very good things. And finally, there's a Parfum Prasanna from Prin Lumros. And I'm kind of hit or miss on his stuff. Sometimes I like it. Sometimes I don't. I've heard people compare this to Zoologist Sloth. I've never smelled Sloth. But this is called Haxan. Haxan. And Haxan is a green, spicy fragrance with this beeswax absolute. So there's lots of common to see Prin Lumros notes in this fragrance. There's stuff like goat's hair tincture, vermouth, sage, thyme, basil, oregano, elemi. There's that beeswax. There's castoreum. There's costus. There's mushrooms. There's all kind of crazy stuff in here. And sometimes when he throws everything together, it works for me. And sometimes when he throws everything together, it doesn't. So we'll see what Haxan brings to the table. Okay, let's do this top 50. Number 50 is going to be one of the worst fragrances in my collection. But I wanted to put it on the list because it is a full bottle, and it deserves to be actually lower than number 24. But this is the number 24. Then number 50. This is 24 Elixer Gold. So this is the flanker that they call Rise 24 Elixer Gold, Rise of the Superb. Terrible name. And yes, this brand is actually based off of a television show. And imagine the worst smelling version of Jubilation 25 you could ever imagine, okay? The absolute worst. The spices are disgusting in here. They are so cheap smelling and bad. Apparently there's this hidden chili note, and if you really think about chili when you smell it, you'll smell it. It is, I think it's terrible. You know, people talk about culling their collections. This is one I would definitely sell, but I want to keep it around to ultimately do a full review on it, but that means I have to force myself to wear it. But people like negative reviews. That would definitely be a negative review. Number 49. Number 49 is a clone, and it came out 9 years ago from the brand Reyane Traditions. And you know what? This is actually a good fragrance. This fragrance could have been much higher, but there's so many good fragrances on this list. Honey is one of my favorite notes that I just couldn't put it higher. But it's called Insurrection 2 Wild. Okay, so Insurrection 2 Wild. And it's a clone of, or it's inspired by, Thierry Mugler's Pure Havane, which is much higher on this list. Pure Havane is one of my favorite sweet fragrances of all time. And look at the bottle. You know, it's actually, for a clone, look at this. Look at the detailing. It's not bad at all. I will say that. It is not bad at all. And the smell is not bad. They even put the little deal on the atomizer here. So you can tell they put time into this. And the fragrance is actually not bad. I bought this when I was having a hard time finding Thierry Mugler's Pure Havane in vintage format. And so I bought this just to see what it was all about. And you know what? It's good. I will say that. I don't talk about clones very often on my channel, but it's this honeyed tobacco with this patchouli and cacao, and then French labdanum, amber, and styrax. The ingredients do seem just a little bit cheaper than Pure Havane, which is much higher on the list. But if you can't find Pure Havane, instead of buying the Mugler version, I would tell you to buy that, to be honest with you. Either buy the one that was Thierry Mugler, which I'll show you when we get to, or I would say buy Insurrection 2 Wild if you can't find that version. Don't buy the modern Mugler version, in my opinion. Okay, so next on the list, we've got number 47. Sorry, 48. And this is a Paloma Picasso from the 80s. And it's actually just Paloma Picasso. It actually dropped. This thing tipped over on me and broke, so the cap doesn't properly close anymore. And this was a tester. This is a 2007 bottle, and I thought because it was 2007 that I would be getting something a little bit better than the modern stuff, but it's still Luxury Products LLC, which is L'Oreal. So I need to try to secure an older bottle of this and see if I like it even more. I hear that bottles from the 80s are just mind-blowingly good, but I've never smelled any of them. And then number 47, we've got a Parfums Wheel. And Parfums Wheel, this is Zibeline. And this is a vintage bottle. How's that for an ingredient list? Ah, you wanted ingredients? Alcohol and fragrance, bitches. Look at the packaging too. Good stuff. I like this, and it's 118 mil. You know it's a vintage when you're looking at a 118 mil bottle. Now everything is standardized. This is thanks to Anouge. This is old Anouge at Enchanté stock. There's the inside. It's actually a beautiful package and bottle. Beautiful bottle. 118 mils. And the fragrance hasn't grown on me yet like I thought it would. It's supposed to be an animalic honeyed floral is basically what it's supposed to be. With this aldehydic coriander. It does have tarragon in it. You guys know I love tarragon. It's got tarragon in it, and it's got iris and jasmine and rose. It's got many of the classical French bouquet of florals. Lily of the Valley, gardenia, jasmine, rose, ylang, with this honeyed sandalwood base with civet is basically what it has. And I've worn it to bed a couple times, and I like it, but I don't love it yet. I need to wear it more and give it more chances. But that is Parfums Weil Zibeline. Okay. Next on the list. I think my voice is settling down. I think we're going to be okay. Next on the list, we have number 46. And this is from the house of... Actually, I think this was put out by Coty. I'm not 100% sure who initially made this. But I think this is an older bottle because of how it says flammable, inflammable. I think they did that like 25 years ago. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think this is the newest one. There is a new version of this, believe it or not. This particular version is discontinued, but there is a new version that's produced by, so Coty must have actually sold the, they must have actually sold the license because, let me see if I can find the new one here. Who makes the new one? 2021. Here it is. Yeah. So the new one is made by, it's marketed by Edge Beauty. I have no clue who Edge Beauty is. But the note listing is different. It's actually very different than the one that I've got. This one is bergamot, lavender, lime, clary sage, lemon, carnation, geranium, orris root, jasmine, patchouli, vetiver, cedar, amber. The honey's in the base with musk, tonka bean, and vanilla. And the new one is sage, citrus, vetiver, cedar, patchouli, musk, honey, amber, vanilla, tonka. So there's definitely some differences. But I thought this was a good fragrance, and this competed directly with Ralph Lauren's Chaps, which I love. I love Chaps. Even though Chaps is a little bit powdery, this has a little bit of a powdery edge to it as well. But people think, oh, this was a, $9 drugstore fragrance or something. I'm telling you, it's spicy, it's woody, it's got that honey dry down that I really like. This smells, in today's market with the shit that the designers are putting out nowadays, this smells much more expensive and much more worthwhile than it ever did 20 or 30 years ago, in my opinion. So, Stetson. I guess by Stetson, but I think Coty is the distributor of this one. And then we've got a, what do we have next? Number 45. Number 45, we have a Annick Monardo creation from 2004, and it's Bois d'Argent. Now, this is from a 2018 bottle, and you can see this is thanks to Lee from Fragnanimous. Thank you, Lee. And Bois d'Argent is kind of the precursor to Dior Homme, which I very much love. It's one of my favorite designer lines of all time. Dior Homme came out 1 year after Bois d'Argent. Bois d'Argent came out in 2004, and it kind of set the stage for Dior Homme with this mixture of ambrette and iris. And here, basically what Annick Monardo did is she made everything seem very airy and musky and light and powdery. And even though you can kind of pick up some of the heavier ingredients, the reason this is not higher on the list is because I like my honey a specific way. I like it to be dirty, pissy, animalic. And you'll see that once we get to the top of the list. There's a ton of dirty animalic honeys at the top. This is kind of more, I don't want to say summery, but I don't want to wear this in the cold. I want to wear this when it's a little bit warmer and it can project a little bit more, because it does kind of wear a little light on me. I would be curious to see. 2018 is the year that François Demachy reformulated many of these Dior Privés. So I would love to see what Annick Minardo's initial version of Bois d'Argent was like, but I've never smelled it personally. So that was number 45. Number 44. Number 44 is a Serge Lutens, and it is actually Muscs Koublaï Khan, the vintage Shiseido Palais Royal version in the bell jar. And this is a challenging fragrance for me, to be honest with you, even though it has the castoreum and the civet, and it has the beeswax, which I love. There's something about it that is very challenging for me, and I think it's just a personal memory. I actually had a girlfriend that used to wear this back in the day, believe it or not. Muscs Koublaï Khan was her scent. And there's this natural funk that kind of comes about this from this fragrance. It can be a very challenging wear, and it can really put some people off. There's this note of costus root in here, which can sometimes come off smelling a little bit like a wet animal or a dirty animal, or maybe like an animal that slept in the same little area or bed over and over and over and over again, but it's never been washed or changed, and it just has that, you know, oily, furry smell. Muscs Koublaï Khan has that for me. So I need to force myself to wear it and talk about it more. You could wear Kiehl's Original Musk, which is not as animalic, or you could wear, there's a fragrance called Carnicure from Marlou, which I actually have, and it is kind of an easier version of Muscs Koublaï Khan to wear, but you don't need both. If you have one, you don't need the other. So that was number 44. Number 43 is a Parfum d'Empire fragrance, and this is a brand I really like, and I'm glad my brother from another mother, Rich Mitch, agrees with me, and he's kind of come around on this brand. I think the first one or two he tried he didn't like, but I really like this fragrance, and this is kind of this spicy floral tobacco scent, honeyed tobacco, and I love this stuff. It's called Tabac Tabou. One of my favorite tobaccos, and it just has this hay-like, perfect blend between this hay-like immortelle, this curry immortelle. You know, it's just so perfect for fall. You know, you see this golden hue. It really gives off this golden hue, and there's a wild grass note in a sensual skin accord, which is very strange to me. I understand what they mean. And in fact, one of the perfumers that I was blessed enough to interview, Papillons Les Moors, said on my interview, and if you haven't watched it, I would urge you to. It's one of the best things on the channel. She said that she purposely tries to put this skin-like feel in all of her fragrances. And I know exactly what she means by that. There is something warming and sensual and, you know, almost touching. It touches you a little bit closer, not literally because of skin, but figuratively. Having that warm body-like feel blends with your chemistry better, in my opinion. I wear all my fragrances on skin. Very rarely do I spray my clothes, unless I'm going out and I really want people to smell me. Otherwise, I don't care. Most of the time, I don't care anyways. That very rarely happens anymore. Anyways, it's hard to go out with a 3-year-old, you know, especially working and being the breadwinner of the family. So many a times I'm beat after a long days of work, and then the weekends are spent studying for the CFP, and so I'm not going out and about like I was in the college days. But if you do want to be noticed, put some on your shirt right here, go out, and I've noticed that fragrances tend to project more when they're on clothes. but I wear fragrances for me, and that's why I wear them on my skin. Usually here, or I'll do the inside of my collarbones, and, you know, the top of the wrists. And if it's night and I want to kind of test something different, I'll do the inside of my wrist right here on the pulse points, or right here on the inside crux of the elbow. But this blends beautifully on skin, and it has this honeyed tobacco, but very different from something like, you know, Pure Havane, which I mentioned earlier. This is much more grown up and, you know, much more established. It's for an established person. You know, they know who they are. They know what they want out of life. They're not just out partying. Pure Havane is more for the partier, in my opinion. But I do really love that fragrance, and that's why it's so high on the list. Okay, next we've got number 42. And again, another interview on the channel you can go check out. If you're kind of new to the channel, I actually have an entire tab playlist interview you can go check out. But this is called Khaan. And the reason I'm bringing it up is this was distributed by Mason. And I was blessed enough to interview this chap on the channel, and his family. You know, his family distributed Khaan for a long time, and we had a conversation about the fragrance industry and where it's going and stuff like that. But Khaan is very underrated, especially these older bottles. I don't know about the new formulation. I would guess it's not that good, because he told me that it's actually outsourced to China, is where they're now making it. So it's being marketed by a company called Palm Beach Beauty. And all they care about is keeping the cost as low as possible and pumping out units, right? So they've reformulated it, and it's not what it was. But these older bottles are amazing. They almost have this Abbey Rouge-like powderiness, if that makes sense, even though you look at the note listing and you wouldn't think it's powdery. So it's key lime with Sicilian bergamot and clary sage in the top. So it's very herbal, and then it gets a little bit spicy with cinnamon leaf, a little bit floral, lily of the valley, Egyptian jasmine, and violet with frankincense. But the base is where the honey comes out. So there's this honeyed patchouli with lots of oak moss in this. There's a lot of oak moss in the base, and Haitian vetiver, musk, amber, and somehow that ambery muskiness, I think, gives off this powdery-like element to me, to my nose. On me, it turns slightly powdery, but I love it. I love Abbey Rouge, and I love Khaan. They're two of my favorite fragrances from the 1960s. Okay, next on the list, we've got number 41. This is an Hermes, and this is Hiris, which is Hermes Iris. But many people think that this is just iris in a bottle, that it's kind of a soliflor. And it sort of is to an extent, but there are notes going on. So in the top, there's amber, carnation, iris, and coriander. And this is also slightly powdery. The focus is on the iris, and I did an early impression video yesterday on Belle Âme from Eugene's brand, Les Abstraits. Go check that out if you're into iris. I said it reminded me of some different Chanels, many from the Les Exclusives line that have that very high quality iris. And this is one such fragrance, very high quality iris, but there's more going on. There's also neroli and rose with honey. And actually it's like this almond-like honey is how I would describe it. There is a bit of vanilla. There is a bit of cedar. Okay, so it's slightly woody. The vanilla just keeps it a little bit wearable. But that almond, it's almost like this honeyed almond, like dry down. Beautiful fragrance. One of the best irises money can buy, in my opinion. And then we've got a Cartier. And this one, actually, I struggled with. I had it much lower earlier when I made the list. And then I wore it to bed one day, and I was like, you know, it's actually not as bad as I had it. So I moved it up on the list a little bit. But this is Cartier's L'Envol. And this is the Eau de Parfum. This is a tester, as you can see. They actually have, and I actually purposely went for a tester. Number one, it was cheaper. This is a strange bottle, too. This is an 80 ml bottle. Number 2, the regular bottles, actually the bottom twists out and comes out. And this is a very thin piece of glass. It's beautiful. Cartier makes beautiful pieces of glass and watches and, you know, jewelry makers. Cartier is amazing jewelry makers. And I wanted this bottle because I heard that the other ones could easily break. And I'd rather have the juice than the beautiful bottle. The bottle's still nice. I mean, it's got that cool little pop atomizer you twist. But, you know, it says an airy and woody nectar, a life potion for men to take off. Musk, guaiac wood, and honey notes. And I get a 4th note. I get more than just honey, guaiac wood, and musk. I get this almost violet leaf-like feel, this airy violet leaf. And it's a very strange, it's a very, you have to give Cartier some credit because it is a very daring release for a designer to release something like this. It's not every day that you see something that's a little outside of the mainstream. Most people, when they smell this, they're like, what the hell am I smelling? Because there is this honeyed aspect, but it's light. It's strange. It's mixed with that airy white musk and what I think is probably violet leaf. I think there's a violet leaf accord in there, if memory serves. Even though it's not listed in the notes, I think I remember hearing about it and smelling it in the fragrance. I mean, if you wanted to wear a honey in, you know, if you wanted to wear a honey in summer, that's probably one you could reach for, but it's just, it's a very strange. You have to smell it for yourself, but it's good. It's not, Cartier does not make bad fragrances. They also do very good reformulations, but okay, next on the list we've got number 39. And this is the only full bottle of Zoologist that I own, and this is called Moth. And I really like Moth because Moth is a perfect example of art in a bottle. Everyone in the fragrance game that, you know, gets really deep into it, they always say the same thing. I want to smell art in a bottle. I don't want to smell the same thing over and over again. This is a fragrance that really takes that to the next level. It is a fragrance that has these layers, you know, and when you first smell, you're going to think, oh, this is a spicy, peppery, cuminy, challenging, you know, bit of saffron, bit of clove fragrance. And then as it continues to dry, you're going to think, wait a minute, this is a floral fragrance. There's heliotrope, iris, jasmine, rose, mimosa, and lily of the valley. And then as it continues to dry, you're going to think, man, this is like this smoky, incensey, honeyed oud. That's where the honey comes in, is the base. So there's Nagamatha, which many perfumers use in tandem with oud to create this oud accord. And ambergris and resins and musks and smoke. And it's just such a complex scent. And if you really wanted to get into the mind of the perfumer, if you think about a moth traveling, you know, blindly, attracted to the light. Is it a fire? Is it a light? Is it, and you think about them kind of going on their journey while you wear this. It really is a very interesting way to do a fragrance. So Moth comes in at number 39. Number 38 is one of the few Penhaligon's fragrances I like. I really don't like that brand. However, to be fair, I haven't smelled some of the new stuff that everyone raves about. I haven't smelled, Halfeti leather, Halfeti cedar, all that other stuff, Petra, Cairo. I haven't smelled any of those. But I'm not a big fan of the brand, honestly. But this is a spicy, woody, fougere, classic, gentleman's fragrance that Bertrand Duchaufour did to perfection. And I think this is full bottle worthy. If I had to get one Penhaligon's, this would probably be it. It's sartorial. So this is a 10 ml decant. As you can see, I've given it a good amount of wear. And This is, to me, what H24 probably should have been, although this is so far ahead of its time. And that's the thing that, that's the thing about Bertrand Duchaufour fragrances. I think they are so far ahead of the curve that his fragrances kind of come along, and sometimes with something like Sartorial, Penhaligon's realizes they have something special, and so they kind of keep it around. But sometimes, because they don't always sell so well, because they are made for people like us who love perfume, sometimes they get discontinued. And so if you smell this, think about this in terms of like H24 and Ganymede. Think about that metallic note that the perfumers are trying to use now in 2022. That's all the rage. You know, it used to be blue fragrances from 2000 and, 12, 15, 18. It was all about the Sauvage, Bleu de Chanel, all that stuff. Now they're trying to make these metallic-like perfumes. H24 and Ganymede and stuff like that. Quinton Biche is one of the forerunners of that DNA right now. And but then go smell this, and you'll get that kind of ozonic metallic, at a dry cleaner, like fresh pressed iron against cloth. You'll get that kind of yeah, I mean, you'll get this this steam like quality. That's a good word for this. The steam, this violet leafy steam, metallic-y, but then you get the beeswax, the lavender, the leather, the honey, the tonka, the myrrh, the oak moss, and it really feels like you're smelling a classic gentlemanly fougere with this lovely, not just lovely in the smell, but lovely in the creation. I mean, you almost have to kind of stand back in awe at Bertrand Duchaufour. He was so far ahead of the curve in 2010 doing stuff like this, so hat tip for him, Sartorial. Easily full bottle worthy, although I don't know if I'll get one. So that is number 38. Number 37 is a Diptyque, and this is called Volutes. And we talked about this the other day because I just did a perfumer's portfolio video on Fabrice Pellegrade. So this is basically this honeyed Apopanax, cinnamon, iris with a touch of tobacco, just a hint of this sweetened tobacco. And this is the Eau de Toilette. So it's a little bit lighter, a little bit airier, a little bit easier to wear when it's not so cold. But Volutes is absolutely beautiful. The only reason I didn't put this higher really is because there's another fragrance that came out over a decade before this that I'm pretty sure is inspired. This other fragrance was the inspiration for Volutes. And so that is much higher on the list, but I do appreciate Volutes. I do enjoy it. And I do like the House of Diptyque. I know even though they kind of get beat up from time to time, they have some stuff that I do like. Okay, next on the list, we've got number 36. And we're going to go to the Zoologist sample set, which I recently gave Hyrax a full wearing, and I enjoyed it, even though it was challenging. It wasn't my favorite, though, to be honest with you. I would not buy a full bottle of that. And I wore this to bed the other day, and I also really enjoyed it, but I wouldn't buy a full bottle of it again because I prefer my honey to be much more vintage in style. I'll show you. There's actually a early impression video I did on a vintage honey fragrance. I do want a full bottle of that. I'd put ahead of this. This is full bottle worthy, but it's a modern fragrance is the thing. And most of the time my heart kind of, yearns for these vintage creations. So I just couldn't see myself getting a full bottle of this, but it is good. I did enjoy it. It's called Bee by Zoologist. Probably the best. I should probably make this the logo for the video instead of the one that I'm using. But Bee, look at the bee too. She's all decked out. Look at her cape. She's the queen, man. So Bee is this very strange, almost gourmand. I actually think Slow Dive might do this DNA better. This came out a couple years before Slow Dive. Again, I only put 1 spritz of Slow Dive on, so I have to go back and revisit it, and I'm definitely going to do a video on it soon. Bee came out a couple years after Slow Dive, and what they did is they used royal jelly in the top. And royal jelly is supposedly, if you're not familiar with that term, which I actually had to kind of look it up, my wife knew what it was immediately when I talked to her about it, but royal jelly is this beeswax that comes specifically from the queen bee. It's supposed to have these special properties. I'm not into stuff like that, but some people are, and they say it's supposed to have these special properties with ginger syrup, orange, broom, heliotrope, mimosa, orange blossom, benzoin, labdanum, musk, sandalwood, tonka bean, and vanilla. And this one gives off this, I want to say, almost like this gourmand, like it's right up against the line of a gourmand without being a gourmand. So it's good. I like it. Would not go more than this 10 ml decant though. So Bee by Zoologist. Probably the best named as far as this video goes though. Okay, so that was number 36. Number 35 is a Guerlain. And I really like this. Actually, this is a very interesting fragrance. I think of it as like a honeyed rose. It's kind of like this floral, powdery honey rose. It's Rose Barbar. This is a 10 ml bottle. The only new bottle of a Guerlain that I have. Speaking of honey, maybe that should be the logo. Maybe I will make that the logo. Rose Barbar is this aldehydic Bulgarian rose with fenugreek, Turkish rose absolute, underwood, honey, and patchouli. And you know what? This is a very good rose scent. Again, don't know if I would go for a full bottle, but because I have other rose fragrances that I know and love, I'll rank my rose video one day soon as well. But this is very good. You have to give Francis Kirkjohn kind of a little hat tip. He was doing great things 2004, 2005. You know, he put out Eau Noir 1 year before this for Dior. And then the very next year, he follows it up with Rose Barbar. Gotta give him a hat tip for those creations. That was number 35. Number 34 is an Animale fragrance. And this is underrated to me. This is one of those fragrances that just gets overlooked for whatever reason. And according to Parfumo, it's discontinued. I don't know if that's true or not, but came out in 1994, and it's called Animale Animale for men. Now, be careful. It's very confusing because they have a fragrance that came out a couple years before this called Animale for men. Just one animal, right? That's a completely different fragrance. So this is amber with pineapple, galbanum, honey, jasmine, lavender, lime, lily of the valley, musk, nutmeg, patchouli, rose, sandalwood, tobacco, vanilla, ylang ylang, cedar, and lemon. And this came out a couple years after Thierry Mugler's Angel and a couple years before Amen, which is a little higher on the list. I think Amen is a little bit better, but Animale Animale deserves kind of a little hat tip for being earlier. You know, it kind of takes that Amen DNA and has that tobacco. So I love it. I mean, I'm a huge fan. I think it's one of the best $20 fragrances money can buy. So don't overlook Animale Animale. The honey in here is gorgeous too. It does lean a little gourmand. I will say that. All right, I'm going to take another sip of my tea here. Man, who would have thought talking would just do your throat in that bad? I guess when you're already kind of congested and stuff, it's easy to dry your throat out. So I'm trying to keep it hydrated. Okay, next on the list we have a Bond number 9, and this is number 33. And this is actually, I think, my favorite Bond number 9. I have a 50 ml. I wish I had 100 ml of this one. And I wish I had a 50 ml of the other one that I have 100 ml of. But this is called York Oud. And, you know, sometimes their bottles do kind of look cool. I will give them that. Sometimes that looks cool. Sometimes I'm like, not so much. But this one looks kind of cool. I like the gray. New York Oud. New York Oud is very good. It was created by Laurent Legrenec, and this is red plum with saffron. It's basically like a plum rose. Think of red rose with oud, saffron, and plum, with a little bit of iris to keep it posh, and patchouli to add that weight, and honey. Okay, so this dank patchouli, honey, which I absolutely love, with a little bit of orange zest and vetiver. I've never smelled anything like this. It is very unique, and I think it's very well done. And I don't know if this is discontinued, but I've seen bottles selling for crazy money. So, New York Oud by Bond number 9 comes in at number 33. Number 32 is a Serge Lutens, and you guys may be a little shocked this isn't higher, but the reason that this isn't higher for me is because this is more about the plum with the cedar and cinnamon to me, and cardamom, than it is, you know, the honey. It's also more about the clove. So it's the clove, cardamom, plum with cedar. You know, cedar is one of the main notes here. It's féminité du bois, the femininity of wood. And this fragrance, if you look it up in the directories, it'll say 2009. That's actually not correct. It's not a 2009. It's actually a 1992 release, because it was originally released under the Shiseido line, and then Uncle Serge was allowed to put it in his own collection. But it's basically a trio creation. Serge Lutens, Christopher Sheldrake, and Pierre Bourdon. How's that for a trio? Féminité du Bois, regularly considered by many to be, you know, one of the greatest fragrances of all time. Many perfumers say they wish if you gave them one fragrance that they could make, many of them will pick Féminité du Bois. And, excuse me, there is this honeyed-like aspect, but the thing is this one is a little bit airier. I wish I would have been able to smell the original that was supposedly heavier and thicker, but that's still a great fragrance. I still love it. Completely unisex. Okay, number 31 is a Lanvin, and it's Avant-Garde. So Avant-Garde is discontinued, and Jeremy, bless his soul, actually hyped a good fragrance for once. Avant-Garde, to me, is a very interesting take on this sweet tobacco, beeswaxy, benzoin-y. It is very designer-esque. Some people say that the cardamom in here reminds them of Lanvin Delon. I mean, maybe. I get more, you know, it's like, imagine if you mixed Midnight in Paris, Lanvin Delon, and Pure Havane. You know, you'd probably get somewhere in the ballpark of this. It is designer-ish. I mean, if you're one of these, you know, pinky ring out guys who you're like, nope, I only wear Roja or MFK, or, you know, then maybe this is not for you. But if you're open-minded, I'll tell you what, don't let the $20, you know, these were at discounters for $20 for the longest time. Don't let that put you off, though. This is a good fragrance. It was created by Shyamala Maisondu, interestingly enough. Her of fame from the Ghost Perfumers book. She rode with, what's his name, to go see Pierre Bourdon, interestingly enough. All right, I'm all out of tea. It's all downhill from here. We're going to do another Ricola. All right, so next on the list, we've got number 30. This is an Ungaro fragrance, and it's called Diva. So again, the reason this isn't higher is because there's this DNA this DNA is done better by another fragrance in my opinion, but I really like this. This is very good. If you like Chanel's Coco from the 80s, the original Coco, I think you'll really like Ungaro Diva. It's like cocoa, but with some honey, is kind of how I describe it. It's got that floral, spicy, chypre, civet, honey thing going on. Beautiful creation, though. And it is a Jacques Polge, so that's why I said if you like Coco by Chanel, which Jacques Polge made a year after Diva, you will probably like Diva. They are very close. And then we're going to number 29, and this is a Bortnikoff, and this is Lao Oud. Lao Oud. All right, so Lao Oud is pink pepper, magnolia, peach, frangipani, beeswax absolute, cinnamon, chamomile, peru balsam, cacao absolute, oud from Laos, tonka bean, crocodile wood, coffee, oud from India, vanilla absolute, birch tar, and gaiac wood. What the hell is crocodile wood? That is news to me, buddy. I got all of my Bortnikoffs from Lee from Fragnanimus. I showed his little get-up whenever I showed you the Bois d'Argent. Fragnanimus.com. That's where I get all my Bortnikoffs and, you know, stuff like that. He has a Riche La Dorée. Oh, this is very, very good. This is like a coffee animalic oud with beeswax and cacao. So it's kind of in the middle of Oud Maximus and Oud Monarch. If you like those two fragrances, you'll really like Lao Oud. Number 28 is a Lagerfeld, and a discontinued one at that, unfortunately. Shame. All of my Lagerfelds are discontinued now, believe it or not. This is Photo. And this is the Unilever version, but I don't give a shit. I'm just glad to have a bottle, you know. They're so hard to come by nowadays. But this is the Unilever version. Parfums Lagerfeld, distributed by Unilever. So, you know, I have a couple minis of the older juices. So one day I'll do a comparison. But what this is, is basically this woody, fresh, aldehydic, one of the best aldehydic modern fragrances I think I've ever smelled. The aldehydes in here are stunning, and I love wearing this in the warmer weather because there is this freshness to it, but there's also this honey. So it's got this early 90s. You'll see a lot of coriander and caraway and stuff like that in those kind of fragrances, and they are here with lavender. And even though the base has some warm notes, you'll see benzoin and gaiac wood, sandalwood, patchouli, tonka, cedar. It wears very fresh, and I really like Photo. Wish I had a big older bottle, but those are going for crazy money. Okay, number 27. We go all the way back to the year 1980, and this is Alain Delon. From 1980. What a fragrance this is, man. What a fragrance. I'll tell you that. I've got a backup of this. Believe it or not, for all of you who just say, I always like the older version, okay? Let me just show you something real quick. This is the original Alain Delon that doesn't show classic on it. So this is the original. This is the, you know, newer version, when they were even still making the newer version, by Wirtz and Joel, okay? And I actually think I prefer this. There's this extra honeyed facet to this. If you compare the two, and you really like honey like I do, go for the one that says classic on it. This one's much more green to me, much more green to my nose. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, I really like the way that the honey plays with the juniper and basil and, you know, geranium. There's a lot of geranium in there, actually. Oak moss and stuff like that. So, Alain Delon Classic, number 28. 7. Number 26 is a Dior. And it is Leather Oud. Okay, so Leather Oud is this leathery animalic fragrance. Lots of civet. Okay. Lots of civet here. With birch. And you get this smoky oud, basically, is what you get. Civet, smoky oud with beeswax. And that beeswax note, hang on one moment. Sorry, I thought I heard the baby crying. Okay, so she stopped. All right, so basically Leather Oud. The older ones were more animalic, but I still really like this. If you're a fan of you know, somewhat animalic fragrances, and you can and you enjoy that animalic feel, the interplay between the leather, the birch, the civet, the beeswax is absolutely beautiful here. And while I would like an older bottle, I'm kind of happy with this, to be honest with you. I think they did a good job. I don't get a sand note in it at all. I don't know where that came from, but I don't smell it personally. I don't see it in the note listing either. So maybe they accidentally put it in and took it out, but